Can I ask you all a question? What makes a great superhero movie? Is it the grand story, exciting visuals, in-universe connections, Hugh Jackman taking his shirt off in every single X-Men movie? I'm sure everyone will have a different answer to this question, but for me, the thing that elevates a superhero movie beyond its competition is when it pretty much places any and all focus on its main character. You see, my favorite superhero adaptations are Logan, Spider-Man 2, The Dark Knight, and Daredevil, 4 stories where the titular character is at the forefront of everything. These stories are more character-driven, meaning they focus more on character development than they do on plot. That's not to say that there isn't a plot or that the plot takes a back seat, but it's all in service of studying the main character, understanding what makes them tick, and taking them on an arc that allows them to grow in an endearing and unique way. Those are my favorite superhero stories, and I am so damn happy to announce that The Batman, directed by the visionary Matt Reeves, has joined this pantheon of all-time great superhero stories. To keep a long story short, Matt Reeves' The Batman is a freaking masterpiece, man. Beyond awesome, filled with unreal performances, surreal visuals, insane action sequences, and a Batman story for the ages. I never thought I'd be saying the words, holy I have a new favorite Batman movie, but that's what I found myself saying after 2 viewings. This story of a man who's losing himself in his superhero activities, confronted with the idea that his humanity, his city, his family, his legacy is within inches of being lost forever, is so damn heartbreaking, yet somehow passionate and uplifting that honestly I thought I was too speechless to write an essay on it. And truthfully, even when I do make these videos, I usually wait until the Blu-ray is out so that I can pull on the behind the scenes content for more information. But then my man Thierry, go subscribe to his YouTube channel linked below, messaged me saying he was looking forward to my video on the Batman. So I knew I had to make one of these sooner rather than later. And for this essay, we're diving deep into Bruce Wayne's arc and how he learns to rediscover his humanity. So, without further ado, grab a snack, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and let's dive deep into the Batman. Shall we?
For some reason, Batman just always stood out. It's one of the major characters of the 20th century, and so many people connect it on such a deep level and for so many different reasons. The first conversation I had with Matt about it, I just knew there was something radically different from anything we'd seen in Batman movies before.
At the start of The Batman, Robert Pattinson's titular Dark Knight is 2 years into his crime-fighting days. His opening monologue implies that he's clearly hurting, with the streets of Gotham being worse than when he started as Batman. Crime is up, and Bruce is dumbfounded as to why. He thinks that the city needs someone like Batman, someone who can instill enough fear in its citizens so that they won't dare go out at night looking for trouble. It's this notion that forms the ideology of Batman, and it's what he holds on to every time he patrols the streets looking for criminals. But while Batman hunts, his alter ego Bruce Wayne is pretty much left by the wayside. You see, for this incarnation of the character, Bruce Wayne is someone who can barely operate as a functioning human. The Batman persona has all but consumed him, with even little things like sunlight bothering him to the point where he needs sunglasses inside. Unlike Christian Bale's Batman, who knew early on that Gotham needed a beacon of hope in an effort to rise above its crime-ridden streets, Pattinson's Batman is hateful, believing that Gotham is probably already beyond saving, engulfed by chaos, and that someone as vengeful as Batman is the only thing that can save these people. I love how this film takes you deep inside the psyche of both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Of course, you've heard people argue that they're almost separate characters or that Bruce is the mask and Bats isn't, but for me, Bruce and Batman have never felt more connected than they do here. Past iterations of the character have felt like Bruce mastered separating himself from Batman, with each feeling like its own character. Here, they've never been more similar. The socially inept awkwardness of Bruce Wayne carries over quite a bit into how Batman carries himself. In particular, I love the scene where Batman assists Jim Gordon with investigating the mayor's murder because Batman is so damn off-putting in this scene. Batman obviously wants to be there, doing his whole detective shebang, but he walks in like a mother forcing her kid to go to a kid's house that they clearly don't like. Batman has no idea how to act around people because he simply doesn't care what they think or how they perceive them. He's just there to get the job done. I especially love the moment where Gordon Gordon reads the first card that Riddler sends Bats, and then while Gordon is talking to the police commissioner, Pete Savage, Batman just chimes in with the answer as if they're not discussing Batman being there in the first place. He literally just doesn't care, and while hilarious, it adds to the idea that Bruce, and of course Batman, never learned how to act around others. He's still that scared little boy who lost his parents in the alleyway. At the same time though, both Bruce and Bats exude a pretty terrifying aura. Of course more Bats than Bruce, but you get what I'm saying. As heroic and earnest as Bruce may try to be, he's still losing himself in his vigilante efforts. Like every Batman, he doesn't fear death, he welcomes it. But we know that if he continues down this path, then Bruce may be lost forever. And that's where Selina Kyle comes in, kicking off easily the best character relationship in the entire film. Now, Selina meets Bruce during his investigation of the murder of Gotham's mayor. From the start, it's clear that they have a connection and that Bruce is almost taken aback by how Selina carries herself. She's not a hero, yet still has a big heart, and she's trying to help her friend and girlfriend Annika out of a pretty big mess. To me, Bruce sees himself in Selina, a protective soul who's also a thrill seeker, vengeful spirit, and capable fighter. She's someone who presents herself with such confidence in her abilities, as well as show that it's okay to wear your heart on your sleeve sometimes, something that I think Bruce wishes he could do. Through Selina, Bruce is able to start reconnecting to his humanity, understanding what a regular person in Gotham is going through when tangled up with these mobsters and the city's elite. She grounds Bruce back to Earth, showing him that there is a life to be had beyond just being Batman. But much like Bruce, Selina comes dangerously close to losing herself as well. You see, if Batman is someone who, quote-unquote, is not ready to cross that line, i.e. murder, and the Riddler, the main villain of the film, is someone who's fully ready to kill and kill again, Selina, I think, falls in the middle of them, having seemingly never killed before, but is also not afraid to do it if necessary. She wants to avenge her friend who was killed by the mob and is ready to risk it all to do it.
New friend of yours? I'm not so sure. Looks like you upset her.
See, I think it's a pretty deliberate screenwriting choice to have both Penguin and Selina call Batman Vengeance instead of, Batman. Because that's who he is. Batman is vengeance. He's someone who shows no remorse for the people he hurts. The people he hurts deserve it in his eyes, and that's as black and white as they come. But Selina, she operates in the gray, and while she's shown restraint from killing before, it isn't until Selina says that she's gonna kill everyone involved in the murder of Annika, including her father, Carmine Falcone, that Bruce's facial expression changes. For the first time in this movie, he's genuinely scared. Something switches in him, and it makes him realize that this path he's been on, and the one he's inadvertently led Selina on, can only lead to more violence and destruction. He finds Selina and stops her from making a mistake she's going to regret. Obviously, I don't have the footage from this moment right now, the movie's not dropping on HBO Max until mid-April, but you gotta take my word for it that this moment, mixed with composer Michael Giacchino's score, is just, so freaking good.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
So this moment where Bruce stops Selina from committing murder, I think marks the first of 3 moments that force Bruce to confront his entire ideology for why he's become the Batman. The second moment finds Bruce coming face to face with the main villain of this film, the Riddler. Now, over the course of the movie, the Riddler has constantly targeted Gotham's elite, showcasing them to be corrupt individuals who portray themselves to be heroes of the people, when in reality they are selfish, greedy monsters who don't care about the greater good. Now, of course, on the surface, this is a pretty righteous cause to be fighting, but then again, this is a Batman villain, and Riddler brutally murders everyone in his path who he believes has wronged him or the city in some way. But here, Riddler gets to be up close with the man he's been writing to this entire film, the Gotham Bat. This is probably one of my favorite hero/villain interactions ever. Very much in line with Batman and Joker from The Dark Knight, and even Superman and Lex from Batman v Superman. Riddler reveals his backstory here, saying that he, like Bruce Wayne, lost his parents and became an orphan. However, unlike Bruce, who had a support system to ensure that his life carried on, Riddler, whose real name is Edward Nashton, was cast aside, forgotten about, and left to live in the filth that is Gotham City. He's always wanted to take revenge on the city that effectively left him to die, but it's only when Batman first appeared that he finally became confident enough to do it. And that's when it hits you what Matt Reeves and co-writer Peter Craig have been trying to set up this entire movie. The Riddler is a dark reflection of the Batman. Having been inspired by Batman's efforts to clean up the streets, Riddler twists this idea of a masked vigilante to fit his own revenge tendencies, acting as judge, jury, and executioner with no consideration for what murder would do to someone's psyche. Edward Nashton is who Bruce Wayne would have become if he crossed that line, this line of no killing. He seeks to work with Batman, believing them to be the same, but Pattinson's face in this scene says it all, a look of anger and fear, gazing upon a man who he inspired to do these murders. It's honestly a pretty shocking moment in hindsight, the fact that you, a superhero, directly inspire a serial killer to essentially carry out these murders in your name, in a rather indirect way, but again, you know what I mean, and then to have that man say it to your face that you are the reason this is happening, that's honestly gotta be up there with the wildest stuff I've ever seen in a Batman movie. Now this leads us to the film's final battle, which, to be honest, I don't really need to say much about it. Of course it's awesome. Of course Matt Reeves kills it with the directing and the action. Of course Greg Fraser kills it with the cinematography. And of course Michael Giacchino kills it with the score. The main reason why I love this final battle so much is actually twofold. Following his confrontation with the Riddler, Batman discovers that Riddler has stationed car bombs around Gotham to flood the city, after which his followers will carry out a plot to kill Mayor-elect Bella Real. Horrified, Batman races to Gotham Sports Arena where a good chunk of the city has congregated due to the flooding. Batman spots Riddler's goons and battles them, saving Bella's life but coming an inch from death thanks to a shotgun blast. And while the action here is great, it's what follows that brings everything together. As Selina appears and saves Bruce from getting killed, Bruce injects himself with what seems to be venom, that same thing that Bane has from the comics, and goes ballistic, absolutely wailing on the dude that shot him, coming within inches of beating him to death. But after Gordon and Selina stop him from crossing that line, they ask the shooter who he is, to which the shooter replies that he's vengeance.
Did not see that coming.
Bruce's world effectively crumbles with that line. It's almost as if he thought to himself that Riddler's just one guy, so what if the Batman inspired him? It's not like my methods or ideology has carried over into others, right? But it has. The persona of the Batman, this idea of the Batman, is inspiring the wrong people. It's a rude awakening for Bruce and acts as the third and final moment that makes Bruce realize that he needs to change his ways. Fear is no longer the only weapon that Batman can use. His methods have scared people into believing that they can save the city themselves through these abhorrent and inhuman ways. Bruce is in a complete state of shock at this point until the camera pans to reveal that the flood has made its way into the arena and all hope seems to be lost. And then, within a split second, everything seems to click for Bruce. Seeing his fellow citizens cling for dear life, Gordon and Selina frozen in terror, this is what the film has been leading to. Batman becoming a symbol of hope. The fact that he willingly jumps into the water, surrounded by flailing electrical wires, in hopes that he can get everyone to safety without any real backup plan, is just about the most Batman thing that any Batman could do. Lighting a flare, he guides the citizens out of the arena and back into the city, now bathed in the sunlight of a new day. The Batman that walked into this arena is not the same that walked out. In this moment, this awesome moment, both Batman and Bruce have rediscovered their humanity, their love for these people, and their love for being a hero. In a voiceover, Batman recognizes that he has not had the intended impact on Gotham. He needs to be something more than just someone who is vengeful. Gotham needs hope, someone to look up to, someone who stands up for what is right, an incorruptible symbol that looks out for all, someone who defends the innocent from ruthless monsters, but understands that he needs to hold on to his humanity because that's what separates us from them. As dark as this film gets, this is one of the most hopeful and inspiring endings to a superhero movie in history. In Batman, we see the best of us, we see an ideal to strive towards, and best of all, we see hope for a better tomorrow. To be honest, out of all cinematic incarnations of this character, Pattinson's Batman has left me with the warmest feeling in my heart. This Batman is a champion for Gotham, its citizens, and those who got left behind. He's a hero to all, and the one who can take on the weight of the world on his shoulders, especially if it means that his city will have hope for a brighter future. That's the Batman, and director Matt Reeves captured this defining aspect of the character absolutely beautifully. Hello, breathtaking YouTube community. Thanks so much for checking out my video on the Batman. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at NickManakos. I've been Nick Pulmanakos, and I will see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.